All right, welcome back. This is Common Denominator, the Black American Vortex. Hypocrisy and ignorance. This is the third installment. I'm continuing to produce these shows demonstrating, documenting, and exposing this concept, this notion of the Black American Vortex. What is the Black American Vortex? It represents a system of strict control, a system that is in place in Black America that represents the status quo, where ideas that so-called don't belong, sports, activities, fashion that don't belong are filtered out by this unseen force, this unseen group. So this episode, I'm going to talk about sports. Been meaning to do this for a while now, and finally gotten around to it. It's kind of a big presentation, but let me get into it. In the Black American Vortex, the Black American Vortex attempts to dictate to African Americans as to which sports they can play and which sports are off limits. It's mainly unspoken, but it's sometimes verbalized that there's certain sports that African Americans shouldn't play. But what I want to do is I want to show you how this rule is hypocritical, and it really makes no sense considering the fact that there are no black sports in America. There's nothing that Black Americans have created in and of themselves and have brought to the mainstream as a sport. So another notion is, well, basketball and football are so populated with African Americans that they now belong in some way to African Americans. And if I may touch on cultural appropriation for a second, a lot of us African Americans are very, very wary and keen to the notion of cultural appropriation. However, when it is us doing it, we turn a blind eye. Actually, I'm not even sure if we even realize what we're doing half the time. I honestly don't think that most people think too deeply into what we do and what we say. We just kind of follow trends. It doesn't matter how good you are at a sport. Being the best at a sport doesn't necessarily make it yours. Basketball and football are white American sports created by white people. Basketball created by a white Canadian man. You can look up his name. You can look up the history. And football created, American football created here in America. And baseball. These are the top 3 sports African Americans play. And these are some of the top sports in the country. These are the top sports in the country. And then after that would probably be hockey. There are a few black players in there, but African Americans typically call these black players coons or Oreos or acting white for no good reason. Hockey, football, basketball, baseball are all equally white sports. So to single out another white sport and to somehow make it more white than the other sports is hypocrisy and foolishness and ignorance at its best. So this is what we managed to do. We uplift other sports, and then the other sports that are also created by white Americans or white culture, we marginalize them and we still consider them white. And those who play them are considered white. But I'm glad that the notion of this has been changed recently. If you saw the Rio Olympics, these black girls and a few guys shattered this glass ceiling. We could call it a glass ceiling or a glass wall that the status quo put in place. And they told people that these weren't black sports. You shouldn't play these sports. And this is how people are controlled within the Black American Vortex, by deeming those sports off limits or white. Let me also add that modifications of original sports doesn't make it yours. Just because we now dunk basketballs or play dynamically in a way that wasn't played before, it doesn't equal ownership of the sports. Okay, I don't care how hard you do your yoga poses. I don't care how you try to hip hop up ballet, and I have a video on that. It doesn't matter what you do. Any sort of modification equals appropriation, and it's still their activity, their sport, their culture. Then there's the example of the Japanese and the Cubans. The Japanese and the Cubans, if you look at World Baseball Classic, which is a international baseball tournament, baseball is an American sport, but we don't seem to win at this sport. The Japanese and the Cubans are consistently beating the United States and I think Korea in baseball, even though it's an American sport. But baseball still belongs to America. Okay, no matter what they're able to do, it's still American. Soccer is a British sport, but the British don't win anymore. It's Brazil and Portugal and Spain and Argentina. It doesn't matter how good Brazil or Spain or Portugal or Argentina is, or even America, or how often they win. That sport will always maintain its origins. So Black Americans try to claim certain sports as being acceptable to play, and there's really no logic to it, because there are other sports that we could play, and and other activities that we could equally join. Things such as swimming, or bowling, or archery, or all sorts of sports that we could get involved in on a group level, but we choose not to because they've been deemed white. But at the Olympics, the Rio Olympics that just passed, we had an amazing representation of black people, black athletes who really, really made African America proud. Those of us who don't care about these silly rules, these hypocritical statements and false boundaries. There's a quote that I heard mentioned by Damon Dash. Damon Dash, businessman. I think he was part of hip hop. He was a part of Rockaware. I was listening to an interview with him, and I think it was Dr. Boyce Watkins, and he said something profound. He said, "It takes fearlessness to be first." And even though that was within a business context, it's still very, very valid. We have Simone Biles, 19 years old, a dominant force in gymnastics, undefeated, took gold. I heard she's been taking gold since 2013. Gabby Douglas, same, top of her game. Simone Manuel, first gold medal for a black woman in swimming. If she didn't make it a point to be first, if she wasn't fearless in doing this, we would have never had this accolade attached to the culture. And it's people like this. It's people like Daryl Homer, the first American to take silver in 112 years in fencing. We have Tiger Woods in golf, Serena and Venus Williams in tennis, Michelle Carter, who in the Olympics got the gold in shot put. I believe she was the first American woman to do so, or the first American, period, to win in shot put. And she won gold. And I found out that her father, I think back in the 70s, won silver. These people were fearless in being first. They bucked the trend. They decided it's time for black Americans to push past these artificial boundaries set up by the status quo, set up by the ghetto police or the hood police. All of these people were first and fearless in doing so. The Black American Vortex teaches us to avoid new sports or activities that haven't been blessed by the community at large or deemed as being black enough. The facts are that if black Americans only played black sports, we wouldn't be playing anything. And what's interesting about that is to call some sports okay and others off limits and thereby white is blatantly hypocritical. What the Black American Vortex manages to do is to place stress, guilt trips, and scorn black Americans who simply want to play a sport that interests them. Yeah, the sport wasn't created by us, but until African Americans start to create sports, what are we supposed to do? Many black Americans don't even want to play certain sports because they feel like there are too many whites involved in the sport. And I feel that's a form of subtle racism. Or maybe they're uncomfortable and they just don't want to be the only black person. But someone has to be first. I mean, if we think about our heritage, if we think about our forefathers, they had to be first in the sports in order for others to follow. And for you to come in and now think it's a black sport. And I believe in so many ways, our forefathers were better than us. They were more open-minded, less hypocritical, and far less ignorant. The next thing I'd like to discuss is fashion. I want to discuss hypocrisy in fashion. A lot of the things that we have in fashion are unspoken. And a lot of the fashion is driven by the hip hop industry. people need to keep in mind, everything we wear is of American, European, or non-African origin. I mean, there are very few people, if any, wearing dashikis or other African garb. You just don't see it. And just like sports, any modifications to fashion or so-called improvisations or improvements on these European, American, or non-African fashion, non-African clothing lines or fashion, it does not constitute black origin. It just doesn't. There's nothing black about taking Timberlands and wearing them now. All you've managed to do is culturally appropriate something, and you call them Tims now. Okay, you give them a nickname. That company is a white company, and from what I heard, they didn't even want hip hoppers wearing their boots. Okay, but people still wear Tims because it's symbolic of hip hop. But just because we took it and we wore it with the laces open and we modify it and we wear baggy pants and we wear it a certain way doesn't make it ours. So all of these Timberlands, jeans, t-shirts, everything we wear, suits, it's all European. It's all European, or it dates back to Babylonian culture, like the necktie, or it's all American and European. And we really have no right to exclude or tell people to exclude from certain fashions. I mean, we really have no right. I mean, it's all European. We look at female fashion, and I think African American women are a lot more open to different fashion trends than black men are. Black men are pretty simple, pretty clear cut. It's got to be somewhat thug, somewhat hip hop inspired. Or some men may get away with wearing kind of casual Dockers and that kind of thing. But then again, that's not really black inspired, but that's, it's just like black people playing basketball or football, and being comfortable with it. We've accepted that the fact that football is a white sport, but we like it. And the same with basketball, but we like it. So we continue to do it and we don't make a big deal out of it. And it's the same thing with people wearing like Dockers and, relaxed, casual dress, polo shirts and that type of thing. So even though these types of fashion are not of our culture, we feel comfortable with them. But when it comes to other fashion trends, things that may be more activity censored, for people who may partake in certain activities, may it be, certain types of extreme sports or certain types of sports that aren't played by the African American mainstream, like rugby or lacrosse, which is an American Indian sport, or or swimming, or some sort of brand that's associated with swimming, or table tennis or racquetball. There are brands that are associated with these companies and fashion and hats. If we were to wear something like this, it would be deemed white. Okay, this is the truth. This is how we think. Even though the other sports and the other activities and the Yankees hat, I mean, for goodness sake, the Yankees baseball, we couldn't even play baseball at a certain point. And we got a Negro League, and then they integrated it. But the Yankees hat has become the almost de facto symbol of hip hop. Everyone has a Yankees hat on. You see a black man with a Yankees hat and a beard and 2 stud earrings. That's hip hop. But what's happening is the lines between hip hop and just regular black man, there is no line. It's blurred into one. It's almost completely blurred into one. So it's like, if you don't dress this way, you're not black, and and the black vortex, it tries to suck everybody towards that. I remember when I was growing up back in high school, people used to buy, brands like Tommy, Nautica, Levi's, Gerbeau, Polo. They used to wear these brands, and then they used to just wear them bigger. Everything was bigger because there was this fear of looking like white people. Even though we're wearing white people clothing, there was a fear of looking too much like them. And it's so crazy, because when you buy European cars, who do you think you're looking like? When you buy their houses created by their architects, who do you think you're looking like? When you wear their suits and their tuxedos, who do you think you're looking like? I mean, there's this hypocrisy. It's rooted in ignorance. People just have no idea what they're doing and why they're doing it. And it bothers me. It really bothers me, because it really shouldn't be like that. The last thing I want to talk about is hairstyles. And I want to talk about the women, because for men, I'm going to be honest, men are a little bit closer. Black men are a little bit closer to being original. Well, let me not say original. We have black women who are crossing over into some dangerous territory in terms of hairstyles. We have people who will claim to be a strong black woman, or who will point to examples of strong black women who don't appear to be very strong, because they're wearing blonde hair or blonde wigs, or dyeing their hair blonde. And there are two blonde hair genes in the world. One belongs to Europe, and one is recently discovered, which belongs to a group of dark people, melanated people in the Solomon Islands. But black women are dyeing their hair and getting blonde highlights, and very frankly, they're taking it, like they're being hypocritical. They're being hypocritical with certain things. I mean, and they're crossing over into dangerous territory, because if you want to have your own identity, you can't do it by copying another culture's hair, and then out of the other side of your mouth complaining that that same culture may copy your hairstyles occasionally, like at a fashion show, or some mainstream celebrity might wear braids, like black people were the first people on this planet to wear braids. Then I'm reminded of that case in San Francisco, where I think it was in Berkeley or in San Francisco, where this black girl accosted this white guy who had dreads. He had locks. They were dreads. He had dreads, and she accosted him, telling him that he was appropriating hairstyles. But dreadlocks, I mean, it may in fact be a black hairstyle. Okay, now that's being debated right now, but where's that anger? Where's that angst when you see black women with blonde hair and blonde weaves and wigs? Where's that same anger? I mean, so there's this hypocrisy. It's basically do as we say, not as we do. And I think I've pinpointed the leaders in this. It seems like it's the hip hop community. Whatever the hip hop community does, however edgy they want to be, they make it okay for the rest of Black America to go ahead and do it. If the hip hop community gives it gives the black community a blessing, then everybody does it. So that's one of the things that I wanted to really point out when it came to hair. So within the black vortex, we have those who would mock, and this is even more strange. We have those who would actually mock natural hairstyles, and I'm talking about black men, and even some within the conscious community who will mock African hairstyles and say that the hair looks ugly on black women who are trying to be themselves and trying to create a dynamic range of hairstyles within the African American context. They'll mock them and say they look ugly, but then they'll praise these other black women who are quote unquote strong and keeping it real and quote unquote black because they speak with ghetto ebonics. They'll celebrate these women despite the fact that they've got European hairstyles and wigs and weaves and all this. So it's just the most bizarre sort of hypocrisy and ignorance all mixed into one. And it makes sense that it comes out of the hip hop community. It really does make sense because the hip hop community, in a sense, is fueled by hypocrisy and ignorance. I mean, wow. So my final message to those who are listening, to those who have experienced this black vortex, be yourself. Okay? Be yourself. Free yourself. Never mind those people. Think for yourself, because in the end, you're going to be way, way happier. You're going to be much, much happier that way. Anyway, this is Common Denominator.